In the heart of Kenya's highlands, among the ancient trees of the Mau forest, several streams flow, making a bigger stream. This is the source of one of Africa's most remarkable rivers, the Mara River. For centuries, these waters have nourished life, connecting mountains to plains, people to wildlife, Kenya to Tanzania, and life to survival itself. From the Mau highlands, the Mara River flows approximately 395 kilometers southward, crossing landscapes of breathtaking contrast, lush forests, rolling farmlands, open grasslands, and finally, the world-famous Masai Mara and Serengeti ecosystems. It is a transboundary river, a shared resource, shared biodiversity, and shared responsibility between two nations, Kenya and Tanzania. And beyond, it forms part of the larger Nile basin that is shared by 10 African countries.
The Mara River has multiple tributaries. In Tanzania, there are 3. Tegide, this one we are working on right now. We have Somoche, and we have Mori tributary. Among all the 3 tributaries, Tegide is one of the tributaries where we might have potential effect of mercury contamination in Tegide because of the industrial and artisanal gold mining around this area.
From the start of the Mara River in the Mau forest, inhabited by the Kenyan indigenous community of forest dwellers, the Ogiek, through the grasslands inhabited by wild animals and the Maasai community, to where it pours its waters into the Lake Victoria at Musoma Bay in Tanzania, is referred to as the Mau River Basin.
The Mara River, it provides water for some of the most important protected areas in the world, the Masai Mara National Reserve and Serengeti National Park. And as it flows from the mountains of Kenya through those parks and into the Mara wetland and then into Lake Victoria, it provides water for millions of different animals and wildlife, as well as people that live in the basin and depend upon the river. So the river is a really important water source, and the quality and quantity of water is important for all of the people and wildlife on the land that use it. And it also is its own important ecosystem that provides habitat for an abundance of aquatic biodiversity that tends to be underappreciated because it's difficult to see.
One of the major culprits actually of these flash floods is the Talek River. That is prone actually to a lot of flooding when there are heavy rains. What happens is the river is that the water coming in does not have dissolved oxygen. So once introduced into the river, it means that the dissolved oxygen in the river drops down. We all know that fish actually depend on this dissolved oxygen. And once it goes down, it means that fish do not have oxygen to breathe. They then die very quickly.
Although the most visible part of the Mara River Basin is the expansive savanna that encompasses the swift cheetahs on the prowl and the millions of wildebeest that migrate to the crocodile-infested Mara River, which draws millions in revenue through tourism, the hidden gem is the Mara River, without which the whole ecosystem would not exist. Welcome to the Mara River, where you will meet the Momairus canume, the elephant snoutfish, which can generate an electric shock through the water. Ever heard of a fish that can breathe like human beings? The lungfish, Protopterus ethiopicus, can survive months out of water. What about the Lake Victoria labio or the Labio victorinus, which is migratory? It covers longer distances, more than the wildebeest, as far as 75 kilometers according to research done by the Mara River Project.
When we began tagging these fish in the Mara River Basin, we were asking a question that had never really been shown before. Where do these fish actually go? And we found that Labeo victorianus, also known as the Ningu, swim upstream migrations exceeding 75 kilometers. You know, they're swimming through hippo pools, past crocodiles, up rapids. It's really an extraordinary journey. And this migration is important for them to spawn and reproduce and for their survival. And what that tells us is that the whole river is really connected, and protecting the entire river corridor is important to allow these hidden migrations to persist.
The Mara River also includes a diverse range of aquatic biodiversity, consisting approximately 473 native water species, 4 mammals, 88 water birds, 126 freshwater associated birds, 40 fish species, 50 invertebrates, and 141 vascular plants, with many fish and invertebrate species still scientifically undescribed. The aquatic habitat hosts a variety of both tiny and large microinvertebrate species. Some are well known due to their beautiful colors, such as dragonflies and damselflies.
Right from elementary school level, we have heard that invertebrates are animals without a backbone.
Wangari Maathai, the Environmental Nobel Peace Laureate, may have passed on, but her legacy continues to dominate the world, especially in the field of biodiversity conservation. Meet the Maathai long-legged dragonfly, scientifically referred to as Notogompha's maathai, one of the guardians of the freshwaters.
So all these creatures feed on the dragonflies, especially the aquatic stages of dragonflies in the water. Yeah, so they are relied on by higher life as sources of food. The other role that the dragonflies play in our ecosystems is the indication or the health of our surroundings or of our ecosystems. Yeah, this could be ill health or good health, and they're very good indicators of, say, the quality of the water in which they live.
And wonders never fail to exist in the Mara River Basin. If you thought the most successful hunters are the lions and cheetahs or even the crocodiles that await the wildebeest, then you could be dead wrong. For the most successful hunters in the Mara are the dragonflies.
The dragonflies are considered like the most successful hunters. So its hunting success rate will be more than 95%. Now the reasons are very simple. They've got an incredible sight to begin with. If you look at the head of a dragonfly, much of it is occupied by the 2 eyes, which we call the compound eyes. Now each of these compound eyes have got hundreds, if not thousands, of tiny lenses we call omatidia. And the images from each and every lens within the dragonfly compound eye contribute, to the perfect vision that the dragonflies have. Then they also have got a very good flight. They've got strong muscles and very firm wings.
While we are still awed by the aquatic organisms, would you imagine that the helicopter designs and functions were borrowed from the dragonfly? As it can fly all 6 directions, and their head can rotate 360 degrees, giving them an incredible vision. The macroinvertebrates also play an integral part in the Mara River ecosystem by serving as indicators of water quality, contributing to nutrient cycling, forming a vital part of the web, and helping stabilize the river bottom and therefore prevent soil erosion. Above all, winged invertebrates are helpful in pollination, with some becoming delicacies to human beings.
So with the macroinvertebrates, we first go to the river. We use a kick sampler to get our organisms out of the river. We sort them into different trays, and by the aid of identification keys, which are renowned, that's how we really help us to identify these macroinvertebrates.
This is another key benefit that the participants got out of this training, the fact that they are now able to, all by themselves, identify these macroinvertebrates to the family level. Increasingly, all over the world, macroinvertebrates are becoming very important for monitoring or assessing the condition of our water systems, and more so the streams and the rivers. And luckily enough, the identification level that is being applied to biomonitor, or to assess the conditions of river systems and streams is up to family level. And this is the level up to what we went with the participants.
So let us now delve into the broader Masai Mara Basin, starting from the source in the Mau Forest, the Mara Serengeti ecosystem, the Mara wetland, and where it pours its waters into Lake Victoria. The source of the Mara River is in the Mau Forest, which covers approximately 400,000 hectares, and it is the largest indigenous montane forest in East Africa. The two main sources of the River Mara are an Apuyapui swamp as the source of the Amala tributary and the Pararket swamp, which is the source of the Nyangores tributary. The Amala and Nyangores rivers, which are perennial tributaries of the Mara River, are complemented by the Talek, Ngare-Ngito, and Sand rivers in Kenya.
The Mau Forest is really the engine of the entire Mara River Basin. It collects rainfall during the wet season, absorbs it like a sponge, and slowly releases it out throughout the dry season so that the river maintains water in it throughout the entire year, the entire hydrological cycle. The problem becomes when we start to short-circuit that cycle by removing trees, it becomes less of a sponge, and so it just can't absorb as much water. And this is a really big deal for not only the river, but the Mau Forest has tons of endemic species that are only found there, from primates to insects to plants. It's just a huge hotspot of biodiversity. So in protecting the Mara River is really also about protecting the Mau Forest and making sure that it continues to function in a way that helps to protect the entire basin and provide services for the people that live there.
The Mau Forest is inhabited by the Ogiek community, which is one of the communities in Kenya that does not have a migration history.
The river was endangered between 2012 and 2018. That is when we were experiencing very low flow. During the January through February, you could cross the Mara River without even touching water.
Mto Mara ni mto ambayo ni muhimu kwa njia mbalimbali kwa maisha ya Ogiek. Kwanza wakati wa kiangazi walikuwa wanapata maji hapo. Nyuki pia wanaenda kunywa maji huko ili wapate kutengeneza asali. Kwa hivyo vile vile wanyama ambao walikuwa wanawinda pia walikuwa wanapata maji huko. Kwa hivyo ilikuwa tu sehemu ya maisha yao, na Ogiek walipochuka msitu walikuwa wanahakikisha kwamba hii msitu pia inasaidia hii mto wa Mara itiririke throughout the here.
The Mara Serengeti ecosystem is one of the internationally recognized parts of the Mara River system due to the millions of migratory wildebeests, zebras, and gazelles, which have been named as the eighth wonder of the world. Apart from terrestrial migration of the wildebeests and zebras, there is also migration in the waters of the Mara River, which is invisible.
We've tagged several species in the system, Labeo victorianus, Labeo barbus, and catfish, and found that these fish swim tens of kilometers upstream. So a fish that spends most of its life in the mainstem Mara may move up to its upper tributaries to spawn. And what that really demonstrates is that this whole river is a connected ecosystem.
Yeah. But we have an equally fascinating migration that happens, and it's invisible. It's in the river. These different fish species migrating up from the wetlands in Tanzania up into the upper branches of the Mara River in Kenya. It's a super fascinating phenomenon that has been largely ignored up to this point, because if you can't see it, it's hard to document it.
However, irrespective of this spectacular annual migration that attracts tourism, the Masai Mara and Serengeti National Reserves are directly or indirectly dependent on the Mara River.
And there's an economic dimension here that often gets overlooked. The Mara River is really providing water for all of these growing towns that are all around the Mara. They're providing resources for the local Maasai. There's a huge food security issue here. They're providing water for agriculture. The Mara is really a huge engine of economic activity for the region.
Many people rely on the Mara River for their domestic water needs as well as for agricultural water needs for large and small scale irrigation in the basin. And during some parts of the year, the Mara has enough water to provide all of those water needs. But increasingly, we're seeing that during the dry seasons, those dry seasons are becoming longer and more pronounced, and such that the river doesn't really have a lot of extra water in it that people can take out and use for water needs. So there's not enough water during dry seasons, increasingly, to provide for both the river community as well as for the terrestrial community that depends upon it.
One of the dominant communities in the Mara-Serengeti ecosystem are the Maasai, who are culturally known for cattle rearing and depend a lot on meat rather than fish for delicacies, referring to fish as snakes. This plays a crucial role in the conservation of the fish population, which in turn supports the conservation effort in the Mara-Serengeti ecosystem. At the tail end of the Mara River Basin is the Mara River, which flows through the papyrus wetlands before entering Lake Victoria at Musoma Bay in Tanzania. The nutrients and sediments from the upstream feed the wetlands, which act as natural filter, purifying the water before it reaches the lake.
The Mara wetland is really an unsung hero. As the Mara River water spreads out amongst the papyrus swamps, as it flows through the wetland, all of these sediments settle out, the papyrus absorb a lot of nutrients, and it essentially acts like a natural water treatment plant as the river flows through it before entering the lake. Without the wetland, a lot higher nutrient concentrations and sediment loads would enter the lake, potentially driving harmful algal blooms and further reducing water quality in the lake for the millions of people that depend on it there.
Wildlife subsidies have an impact on the interaction of wildlife in the Mara River Basin. But hold that thought. What is a wildlife subsidy?
A wildlife subsidy is when animals move energy or nutrients from one ecosystem into another. In the Mara River, we see these subsidies happening on a massive scale.
And in our case, mostly we talk about hippos and wildebeests.
Due to the large overland migration in the world, where approximately 1.5 million wildebeests and zebras migrate, they provide a major subsidy to the river in the form of carcasses, which arise when thousands of wildebeests drown while crossing the Mara River.
So wildebeest graze in the terrestrial grasslands, and they're consuming terrestrial energy and nutrients. And then when they enter the river, whether they defecate in the water, they're killed by a crocodile, or they drown while crossing the river, they're contributing those terrestrial resources to the aquatic system, where it can then drive the aquatic food web.
Annually, wildebeests release around 1,100 tons of carcasses into the river. On the other hand, hippos introduce a lot of subsidies in the Mara River in form of feces that they defecate into the river every day.
And those inputs have a huge cascading effect on the ecosystem. The microbial community feeds on that, and then the fish, and then the bugs, and then all up through the food chain. It's this huge interconnected web of life.
When the Mara River and the tributaries overflow following heavy rains, the oxygen level drops, which can lead to massive fish die-offs.
There have been very many reports of reported fish die-offs in the Mara River. In most cases, this happens when there are flash floods, either from one of the tributaries or from the Mara River itself. The water coming in does not have dissolved oxygen. So once introduced into the river, it means that the dissolved oxygen in the river drops down. We all know that fish actually depend on this dissolved oxygen. And once it goes down, it means that fish do not have oxygen to breathe. They then die very quickly. So one of the major culprits in the Mara River are the Momiras fish, or the elephant snout fish, which actually dies very, very fast. And due to the very fast movement of water in the river, these fish disappear very, very fast downstream, and it is sometimes very difficult to document what is happening.
There is considerable impact when large wildlife move carbon and nutrients from the savanna to the rivers.
When we measured the total amount of carbon and nutrients that come into the river through wildlife, the numbers were staggering. I mean, we're talking about numbers that rival or even exceed numbers coming in from upstream, from agricultural land use and urban development in upstream parts of the river. But these inputs are entirely natural, and they structure the entire river ecosystem. They drive river productivity, they influence what kind of algae and biofilm grow, what kind of invertebrates grow there and thrive, and what kind of fish communities grow there, and how many fish the river can support. So it's a reminder that in the Mara, you simply can't separate the terrestrial ecosystem from the aquatic one. They're entirely connected ecosystems, and the wildlife are the bridge between them.
Irrespective of the inextricably diverse nature of the Mara River Basin, the ecosystem continues to face several threats, and different stakeholders have risen to the occasion to address the situation.
Tunashukuru serikali maana wamefanya juhudi kwamba waondoe watu ndani ya msitu, na ninawahimiza wale ambao wanaishi karibu na msitu kule juu pia wawe wanalinda msitu, maana tukiendelea kuharibu msitu wetu, wale watu wa sehemu za chini watakosa maji, na pia nchi yetu itakuwa na upungufu wa mvua.
Climate change, which has continuously altered rainfall patterns, has disrupted the aquatic ecosystem in the Mara River Basin.
The compounding effects of climate change, land degradation, overgrazing in the Talich catchment, what that really means is that we're losing a lot of the water from the Mara River. It's going much faster down to Lake Victoria. And so the local people that rely on the Mara River for basic domestic needs as well as the wildlife, that water is really not there for them anymore until we can kind of get the catchments restored and land in a better state until we can kind of stop short-circuiting the water cycle within the basin.
Human impact also affects the ecological imbalance, with deforestation from the Mau forest, pollution, unsustainable agricultural practices, and poor land use being culprits. But all is not doom and gloom, as joint collaboration by local communities, county authorities, and national government has rolled up their sleeves with several mitigation measures to address the spiraling ecological catastrophe. For one to comprehensively understand the Mara River Basin, a team from the National Museums of Kenya, the University of Florida, Yale University, and Randolph Macon College has been instrumental in undertaking an extensive research on the aquatic dynamics of the Mara River. The Magic Crew, a name that was coined by a team of scientists and different personnel who are working on the project.
The success of this work did not come with a lot of challenges, which actually started from the onset during the permitting process. It took around 3 years actually to get all the necessary permits to start our work in the Mara River Basin.
The journey of the Magic Crew was quite interesting. It had its fair share of fun, and equally it had its fair share of challenges. So the fun bit is imagine going to do sampling, and along the way you are just passing, grazing herds of elephants, the giraffes going about their business. This is what most people pay to go and see.
The Mara River is not an easy river to work it with. It's a river with over 4,000 hippos and a number of large Nile crocodiles, none of whom really particularly like having scientists approach on their territory. We've had hippos charge us sometimes in the river, and crocodiles suddenly appear next to where we're sampling. We've had meters get destroyed, washed away entirely by floods. And there's also a host of logistical challenges. Roads sometimes become impassable during the rains, coordinating permits across 2 different countries and bringing teams together from across multiple countries as well.
In over 15 years, the team was buried in their work and immersed in their equipment in one of the most dangerous rivers and met some challenges in their line of work.
In some of the areas that we went, Actually, the locals could not understand English or Swahili. They only understood the local dialect. The locals understanding what we were doing in the water was an uphill task. In some of the areas, they misunderstood us. They even attacked us and deflated our cars, but we never gave up.
This research has illuminated the importance of land-water connections throughout the Mara River Basin and can aid in developing and management and conservation strategies to help protect the river and its watershed. All in all, teamwork and perseverance gave rise to some incredible research.
So Maji Crew was really a name that fit the group really well. Our whole team brought together by this river, and we all had a shared purpose in studying it and learning about it and educating others.